I don't really shop for myself, especially now that I don't have the same level of income that I used to. So I was taking the kid back to school shopping. It's like, oh, I'll get myself a couple of tops and like, let's go back to pink. I miss pink girly stuff.
Pink's good, man. I wear pink. I
You're
can pull
you're
it
real
off.
man.
I can
You're
pull it
real
off. I think it's interesting too. I think like remote work or like hybrid stuff has really, impacted people's wardrobe and stuff. I mean, at least
man.
has for me.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing too is that during the pandemic, when I went to work, I just stopped. I stopped wearing regular clothes. I just wore scrubs and I just stripped them off when I got home. So, um, and I just never went back to wearing regular clothes. And even in my teaching job, I wear scrubs. So I don't. I'm like, I need to kind of look like and then yeah, the whole like couple years being at home doing remote work, I just, I put a top on and then, who cares what the bottoms look like? I'm not standing up
That's
on
right.
camera. I
I
think
hear that.
most people can, can admit to that. So I just said, well, look, it's time to like stop looking frumpy. I need to,
Hey, I got a collar.
yeah.
Wait, what's wrong with you two? Nikki and I are dressed up. What the hell, Paul and Perseus?
I'm just
I
coming
know,
out
just
from.
slobs here. I'm a slob over here. Perseus at least has a nicer shirt on.
Oh, thank you. This is actually an MTA commemorative shirt from the 90s.
As in
So,
Metropolitan Transit Authority?
yeah, the subway, the one where people get stabbed or got pushed onto the rails routinely.
And burned alive.
So that too. I forgot about that one. So the MTA like, well, let's issue commemorative T-shirts to help also make it for the budget, the chronic budget shortfall. But this is one of that. So yeah, I don't know why I wear this, but it's pretty routine.
Looking good.
But I love your your La Playa look, Nikki, because that's something you wear to the resorts we were staying at, and in the Dominican Republic. We were there for a week last week.
Oh my gosh.
Santo Domingo.
That's very nice.
Yeah. My partner went to medical school there 40 years ago, of all places. That's where he learned Spanish. And not much has changed. It's interesting in Santo Domingo, in the Dominican Republic. It's a very two-class society, but what's really interesting is that people kind of get along. I know, right? In Latin America, like in the Caribbean, you think like a socialism is still like a thing that people deal with, but in that country, they don't. They have other things they talk about. They just don't talk about class struggles. And what's interesting, I found. Sorry, to get off topic. If we have a topic yet,
do they not talk about it because they don't feel like they feel it's hopeless?
No, there seems to be a cultural glue that brings everyone together that I don't feel like we have here. I don't know what it is. It could be the language.
It's their hate for Haitians. That's what it is.
There is, but
they don't like the Haitians. That'll bring everyone together.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in the Dominican Republic, the ethnic makeup is like you have a very small minority of the native Indians. They're not black, but they're just like people that've been there for thousands of years. And then you have a lot of people who are black. We're not talking like really black, but that they consider those Spanish speaking, if that makes sense. So it's not like American black. They're very assimilated into
they're black because of their origin.
Well, they're black in their origin, but I'm saying, culturally, if you interact with them, they see themselves as very different from Haitian blacks. And
of course, yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's the language,
because they have a different colonization history.
They have a very different colonization history. Catholicism is like very pervasive. It's like in every aspect of their life there. So I don't know if you could chalk it up to that, but do you know what I mean? It's like there are. I'm not saying that there are no racial tensions, but it's different than what people may be experiencing here. It's like everyone seemed to.
I honestly think throughout the world, including the Western world, people view skin color differently than the way we do it here
Yes.
in the United States. And the reason why we view it differently in the United States is because of the very specific history in the United States. The country made it a thing from its
You're
founding,
right.
made it a
Nikki,
thing. It made you different because your skin color was different.
so
And that was that's not something that we should ignore. That is something very unique about the United States. I mean,
but
much of the
I
world
want to
is
point
based
something
on
out
your
too.
ethnicity and your origin, your family, that kind of.
I want to point something out too, and I'm not trying to like say that diminish anything here in the U.S., but the slavery or the Spanish conquistadors had their slavery. They needed
Yes.
cheap labor brought over,
Yes,
as did the French Empire, right?
absolutely.
I feel like between the British, French, and Spanish, they just, like you said, very different history. And the Spanish, I think, were probably way more, you know, they were pretty brutal. But I mean, we took some tours of the
Yes.
museum, like so. But
Yeah.
I'm just like trying to
And
understand
I
how.
agree. I agree that it was brutal, but
I'm trying to understand, like, how is it that they were able to get to this point in society where everyone just decided to talk about something else and
Well, look at here.
get
Look,
along?
the founding of our country. We said all men are created equal. And then we didn't treat all men equally. We're the only country that did that. I'm sorry. I just don't. We're the only one that came with
Yeah, but
the
you know,
promise of
isn't there?
liberty for all and justice for all, and we didn't do it until later. So we can say
Mm.
slavery is brutal. So sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's just, this is what you do when you're paying off a debt, you paying off your crime. That it's kind of accepted throughout the world. We're not saying that, I'm not one of those people who says that the United States was the only place that, committed heinous crimes because of slavery.
The
But I
quantity of slave
think we're
trade was so
unique
much worse in
because
other
of how
countries.
we were founded and how we treated people. We actually did divide people based on skin color. And that's what made us different, I think.
But I think maybe I just want to make one quick point about what I observed, which is more on a positive aspect. I was trying to make a point. I'm trying to understand why didn't I kind of feel this. And mind you, I didn't just stay in the resort. My partner was actually a doctor who served Haitian patients too back in the 70s. So he was really went as native could go. But I didn't feel like there were a lot of tensions and kind of the conflict there. And I'm going to chalk it up to one thing. I feel like culturally, they would just seem more cohesive, if that makes sense. Like Catholicism and the language was just more unified. It was like, in people's mind, you have to answer to God in their culture, whether you're rich or poor. So in their mind, they are Latin, like they're Dominicans at this point in history. They're no longer Black, mixed, or white, because there are churches everywhere,
Well, that's a good question. How much is similar? I mean, how much immigration do they have, and how much is there an assimilation? Yeah. So
it was interesting though, because they start coming to me and speaking to me in Spanish, like, because I just found out that there's a very small enclave of people who look like me, Chinese, who immigrated there 100 years ago, and they only speak Chinese and Spanish. But the immigration stopped there. And there's also an enclave of Japanese, but then they stopped completely because they have this. It's just unsaid. If you're in Santo Domingo, if you're in the Dominican Republic, you become Catholic and you speak Spanish, and that's the nation. Like, that's it, and you answer to God. That's the thing. You answer to God for, so whether you're rich, poor, Black, or came with circumstances,
you answer to God.
So it seems that was the thing that bring people together. And I'm not saying that, there's it's a very two-class. Some parks look like Mogadishu, to be honest with you, but it's not like they were, I didn't see any people picketing or protesting. It was just like everyone got along. It's just like everyone understood that that's where they're headed, to see Jesus. And they need to behave in this life and be good to each other, however they're. So it's a very different culture. And that's what I was just trying to bring up. Like, it's pretty eye-opening for me. It's like, it's very different for, say, if I went to Washington Heights in New York, where there is a Dominican enclave there, but it's a very different vibe. It's like you have to like look over your shoulder, not because of them. It's just like everyone has to look over their shoulder because you don't know you're going to be jumped.
Yeah. Huh.
That was my.
What I find interesting about the South America and Central America, Caribbean is like the colorism. There is a lot of colorism there, but it's casual in a way that, or it's expressed casually. I should put it that way. Like, so my Colombian friends, the Colombians that say, hey, the blanco, el negro, gordo, flaco, like they will refer to you as the black one.
It's descriptive.
It's descriptive, exactly. It doesn't have that same relative status twinge to it.
There is a status thing. So the faux pas you would make in the Dominican, never ever tell a Dominican black, confuse him or her with a Haitian black. I don't know what's going on there. It's like they don't get along there, which so it's weird. Like they get along with the whites in their country, but they don't get along with the Haitians. And
they had a very different decolonial history, right?
So it's so interesting.
Was pretty extreme. I don't know, like when did the Dominican Republic decolonize?
I don't know much about the history of the Caribbean.
I think it was like because Haiti had their revolt in like the early 1800s, and the DR was.
It was even late 1700s, even. Like it was right after the French Revolution because they were French.
Yeah, it was very quick. I think it was like 1805 or something. And then like 20, 30 years later is when the DR came out of but the DR was more of a settler colony, and Haiti was a sugar slave operation, right? So it sort of started off very differently. And I don't know how much Caribbean hopping you guys have done, but I always found it very interesting, the difference today in the places that were originally colonized by Britain, France, and Spain, right? And not to throw shade at any, one island, but in general, you want to go to the ones that used to be British, right? The ones that used to be French are not as good. Like it's weird. It's not, one for one, but it's interesting.
You're talking about like Jamaica, and
Jamaica was Spanish, I believe, but like St. Lucia was French.
No, Jamaica's British.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I have quite a number of.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Jamaican. Yeah, it's just a different culture. It's like the outcome kind of different. Yeah, you're right.
Well, but it's also just like the sort of the worldview, the governance style. The ex-British colonies, definitely have a slightly different vibe even today than the ex-French and the ex-Spanish colonies.
Well, there was historically strife between Haiti and the Dominican Republic too, right? So there was French colonization, there was also Spanish colonization, and there was a period of time when they were under, where Haiti was under rule of Spain. Like they weren't split as a nation; there were one. So there was a split at some point too. I'd have to review this history. I just don't. I think that's a historical strife that was causing their split. I think
it's a lot like schools, like majority minority schools tend to be more relaxed about a lot of things than majority schools, majority white schools, because just like the U.S. was majority white, when you have a small oppressed minority, the identity becomes so much more salient. Whereas in like a majority minority school, there's a lot of colorism and some racism, but it takes place within a context where it's not a hegemonic culture, which they're looking at themselves as in relation to.
Oh, so this is really interesting because there's actually Wikipedia breaks it down into first, second, and third and fourth republic of Dominican. So there's pre-Hispaniola, pre-Columbus, before 1492, and then from 1492 to 1795. You have a period, and then the French took over. Until 1809, the Spanish reconquested it, a certain part of it, and then it became the Republic of Spanish Haiti.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Then Haiti became its own republic in 1820. So Haiti became independent. That was what you guys were just talking about. There was the Dominican War of Independence that actually led to that split. So then there was the First Republic, and then the Spanish occupied again part of the Dominican, and then the United States had a brief period of time where we occupied the Dominican Santo Domingo from 1916 to 1924, and then that Dominican Republic Civil War was in what they called the Third Republic, 1924 to 1965, and then they had their independence in 1966. So it's much more complicated than we're giving it.
And they all are. Like
that's a lot of reason for historical strife between Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
But a lot of these places changed hands too, right? Because I was half right. Apparently Jamaica was Spanish for like 150 years, and then it went British until it gained its independence in 1962.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea that Jamaica was not independent until 1962.
Yeah. I mean, there's still island nations in the Caribbean that are not independent.
That's correct.
Yeah. Like it was like the Bahamas. They're still under British rule.
So there's something I need to point out that is pertinent to a hot topic in people are talking about immigration this day. The Dominicans are very, very good about their border control. It literally is like an iron curtain there, but they do allow, there's like a checkpoint in the north where they do permit some number of Haitians to come in to work in some of the fields.
Oh, they have a wall?
There's actually a city that's on the border that's split between the two sides, and they're right next to each other.
It's in the north.
Guanamith and Dahabon.
Yeah, so that's interesting because that city. Well, so let me answer Eric. The wall is actually the mountain range. That's the natural wall that no one could scale. There's a mountain that's literally. But that checkpoint you're talking about, Paul, is where. So this is the story I've learned. That part of history. Trujillo, he was a dictator briefly in the Dominican. Yeah. He had exterminated and killed all the Haitians that were living in that part of Haiti. He wiped them out, and then he made a deal with Japan after. This was like after World War II to let some Japanese come in and fix up the farmland there. So that's the area you're talking about. So there was an enclave of Japanese that came, but they found that the place was like going to Mars and trying to terraform Mars, so it didn't quite work out, and they went back to Japan. But that's where one of the few checkpoints. But my point is that they are very, very good about keeping an eye on who comes in and goes out. So it's
Well, if you just look at the satellite imagery of this place, like on the Haitian side versus the Dominican side, it's like, very different.
It is very different.
Material, you can tell the material wealth is.
And I could tell that some of the Dominicans I've interacted with, the blacks, they're actually, some of them said they came from Haiti. They just picked up Spanish really quick and just kind of blended in very quickly. That's the key. Like if you're from Haiti and you were allowed into Dominican legally, they're very accepting of that, as long as you Catholic, Spanish, speak machine gun Spanish, you're one of them. But if you're like come in and I'm still Haitian French and you act up or you cause trouble, out you go. They don't tolerate that. So it's almost like North and South Korea. It's so interesting. Yeah. So what does that say about having good common sense policy and some kind of
What's the
cultural,
lesson?
unifying cultural institution to
Yeah.
help people get along and have something in common. And for them, like I said, it's Catholicism, the food, and the language. Those seems to be the glue that keeps them together and mitigate whatever other tensions that other people in the world is still struggling with. That's my report.
Yeah,
That's
but
my
really,
report.
how are the margaritas? Because that's what I really want to know about.
I don't think margarita is their drink.
Okay.
There's some.
What about the resorts where all the white people gather? That's where I want to go. Club Med. Come on. Yeah, I don't need to know all this history. Just give me a deck chair, a nice pool.
I got to tell you something. So the first part of the trip, my partner wanted to show me where he went to as a student to show where real Dominicans live. So that was a culture shock for me. Like it was more of this expedition than it is a vacation. So I had to admit that was a little challenging. And then the last leg of the trip, we went to a resort, and I found out that I kind of felt that was a little off-putting because now I'm sitting next to Americans who kind of think the whole world is one giant theme park. That's what it felt like. Like I didn't feel like I was in DR anymore in the resort. And all the staff, all the Dominicans that I was interacting with the week before, right? The blacks and the mix and even some of the whites, they were just people you interact. But here they work in a theme park. They
got to do a White Lotus season about.
It was very White Lotus, Paul.
Yeah,
it was very White Lotus. So I don't know.
What's the island drink?
Well, what's the island drink is the question.
Cuba Libre.
No, I stuck to a non-alcoholic coconut arrows.
Let's see. 30 traditional Dominican drinks, a complete guide. There's so much crap on the internet. I just
coconuts. As long as coconuts there. But that's.
Did you dance bachata?
I don't know what that is. No.
That's the that's a relatively recent dance that developed in Dominican. I think it was
there was music and dancing 24/7. So if you want peace and quiet, that's not the place that you want to.
Yeah, I think it came out of the brothels originally. I think a friend of mine, she's Dominican, told me about it. But it's like it's a very like high energy. It's basically like musical cocaine,
Well, okay. Let me add that. So music is also part of the cultural glue that seems to bring everyone together. Music.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that was.
I like the boleros. They're slower. They're traditional. They're more. I find them more soulful and romantic.
Yeah, what's a Mama Juana?
What's that?
Mama Juana.
Oh wow, the drink.
That sounds very promising, Mama Juana. I didn't get that far down the list of drink yet. So maybe next time I'll get the Mama Juana.
I keep finding like non-alcoholic beverages not on the list. So maybe.
Come on, let's get the real deal going.
I have to say, if you do go to the DR and you want to really kind of interact with what's real versus what's in the theme park, these resorts, it helps to know some Spanish. The Dominicans are they are super friendly and accommodating, and it's not like I've heard people who go to France and they don't speak French. They'd be like, the devil may care, but they really go out of their way to help you. But do not speak French. I saw this. Do not speak French to a Dominican. I saw them like, whoa. There was a French tourist who just spoke French to a Dominicano, and that did not go down well.
Oh.
They just changed.
Good to know. Because I don't speak much Spanish, but I do know French, so I should not.
You just need to say, hola, buenas.
Hola, buenas. Yeah.
¿Cómo estás? And you can just
¿Dónde
say
está
hablo
el baño?
español. There we go.
Qué guapo.
Oh, that Nikki.
Qué bonita.
Okay, well,
Learn your flattery, man. Learn your flattery. You got to learn that.
No, Nikki, they would probably start speaking Spanish to you because they might assume that you're Spanish speaking.
I know a tiny bit. Not I don't know. I can understand it better than I can speak it, so I could probably get by, but not. I would be stressed without a guide.
But you know what? They also noticed. So there are blacks from America staying in the resort, and they only speak English, of course. So the Dominicans were kind of like bewildered that they couldn't speak Spanish, if that makes sense. Like
That's funny.
It's a strange interactions. Like, how come you're not speaking Spanish? How come you're not?
How do you not know this?
I don't speak Spanish. I speak. I don't know. Most of that because there's a direct flight from Atlanta. So these are the South. It's like a very deep Southern accent.
No, that's funny.
It's interesting watching them interact with each other.
So what else we got? What are we going to talk about, guys? We're going to talk about the world. Other than, the actual world, the world of the U.S., which is like the world.
Well, I'll tell you what caught my eye. I know there's some news happening on the vaccine front. Interesting here in Florida, I think the second in command. What's that title? The doctor guy? Sorry, I'm being like the secretary. Yes, as
Latipo.
Yes, I don't know whether he has banned, but he's saying that all vaccine mandates in Florida.
You remove the mandates.
Yes. Yeah.
There's
all.
No longer,
so I don't know whether what childhood vaccines too is that off the list. I don't.
Seems like it was the whole deal.
Yeah.
You're not required to get.
What is this? What's happening?
A couple of days ago, Latipo announced for Florida that they no longer have mandates for jabs.
Okay. Well, I also saw a tweet from about a CNN story that was saying all of the left-leaning controlled states or blue states are creating their own health guidelines, and which actually I think is I find extremely interesting, and I think that this is actually a great thing for the country. If nothing else, decentralizing health, I think or health and policy will bring out people's true colors, and people will actually see it for themselves. I saw a post from Keira Davis about Gavin Newsom wanting to bring back mask mandates for because COVID is on the rise again in the state of California. I'm like, you guys, if you want to go that route, you go ahead. You double down and triple down on your vax mandates, your mutilation of children, and your masking and weird, COVID policies that people didn't like, and let's just see how that plays out within your state. So, I think it's gonna, in places like California, where they actually do have a lot of corruption in their voting, and because there's about 40% Republicans in that state who aren't really getting represented somehow on the ballot, but states, where people are who were rebelling against that and voted for Trump, you go right ahead and you double down on that and see how that pans for you. The Republicans aren't doing a great job of selling any kind of new ideas or selling conservatism as an answer, but the Democrats can certainly turn people away more from their party by doubling down on this, the stuff that people rejected in overwhelming numbers. So go ahead. I mean, I'm really interested to see what happens with this.
Mm.
So in addition to potential mask mandates and doing away with vaccine mandates, I know there are the other big item that, well, what caught my eye, for me at least, is if you guys saw that video of Hackseth blowing up a speedboat with 11 Tren de Agua narco. So that was very satisfying to watch. But then, of course, they
blew them up.
They blew them up. But that was a moment for the people on the other side to virtue signal and say you should have arrested them and give them a fair trial.
Or it was in international waters and we had no jurisdiction.
Yeah. So
they came right after the terrorism designation, right? And so, yeah, we can litigate the entire, post 9/11, security apparatus, but we've been drone targeting terrorists ever since without declarations of war in international waters and even other people's countries without blinking an eye. So this didn't surprise me at all.
Well, so what's interesting is that a lot of libertarians are coming out and taking the other side about, how we should have exercised due process and arrest these 11 highly armed
I'm in the foreign invader camp.
I think it's libertarians and non-libertarian and some people on the left who are taking that option. I think there's also a group of libertarians who are completely against the war on drugs in the first place. So, so I think this topic brings up a lot of issues.
Yeah, and I'm like wondering, well, first of all, with the people who are not the non-libertarians who are saying we did not fail to exercise due process, these are the same people who want them arrested, but then will release them again, right? So
correct.
I'm not listening to you, right? When you say arrested
at all,
you're just catch and release. So come on.
They have a reason for being in the drug game. They need money. They need jobs.
That's right, and that would be
making. They're just trying to make ends meet.
That's right.
So that's that. So we shouldn't have blown them out the water. We should have sent out a relief boat to them.
No. That's not what anybody voted for. Sorry, I'm in the invasion camp. I think that when you have bazillions of people that are just coming, right? Like we have borders. We're a nation, right? We have rules, and at what point? How many tens of millions of people, never mind the fentanyl or whatever, the narcotics. That's not cool. Like you're not welcome. You're not coming in the front door, just to put it mildly. And again, I have always believed that, it's in our charter. It's one of the few things in the Constitution that the federal government is supposed to do, which is enforce the border. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
And that sends a powerful message, honestly. If you're thinking of getting in a boat, whether it's got drugs on it, whether you're gang members or not, and using that to come to the United States, like you're thinking twice today or yesterday.
That's where I sit right now. I haven't looked at all the information that's available on this topic. I'm not even sure how much they put out, to say the truth, how much we actually know. So I haven't really commented on it at all on social media. I've been, restraining myself from that. Plus, other things are occupying my mind. But I am in that camp. You show people what the consequences are of trying to come to America and do some illegal stuff. So this is it.
One of the concerns is that
whatever it is,
this could be used on American citizens, enemies of the regime.
It can be used on it anyway.
You have a president that's wants to deport Rosie O'Donnell. Okay, how long until we get a drone strike on Rosie O'Donnell, and can we make that happen yesterday? Sorry,
isn't she already in Ireland or something?
Yeah, she's
self-deported.
Yeah. Yeah,
She self-deported because I just saw a truth
after the election.
Okay, I thought I saw a truth.
Yeah, there was some stupid post that that.
Okay,
Well,
fine. It's all a joke until someone gets drone striked,
so
and then
Paul,
suddenly the edgy memes become real.
so Paul, do you feel? I mean, I think there's some merit to the idea, but you feel like this could be a double-edged sword. Is that your idea?
Look, I'm with Eric. Defend the border, but like everything is a trade-off. Things that are good, they set precedents for some bad things sometimes. So you just be aware.
That's true.
I
yeah,
wouldn't
so
be.
I'm not
I'm not.
Totally agree.
Like just everything's a trade-off, and keep it in your back pocket because you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I'm not in the camp where I would think that Trump would do something like that, or this administration would do something like that. I'm not naive to think that government wouldn't take it that far, in general. And there's definitely a slippery slope. We need to be thinking about unintended consequences of our current policies. We're opening the door to things that, when other people get in positions of power, that they can exercise, and it would be difficult to challenge it if we are accepting it, as legitimate now. And I agree with that. I mean, I think it's also similar to this statement that the DOJ is considering. I love how these things get posted nowadays. The possibility of keeping people with a trans identity from arming themselves. This whole thing. It's the same thing. It's that same slippery slope that we're seeing. I am one of those people I'm completely anti any type of gun control, whether you call it sensible or not. It's all.
Well, that's a brilliant trolling to get the left to love guns.
So that's what I heard too, and I saw that. I said, well, was that statement put out there to get people to get all upset and get up in arms, and then have them defend people's right to bear arms? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't get into that kind of conspiracy.
I mean, it could be. I mean, some of that I think is the way that issue is being presented, because if you're going to, and you may agree that this is a bad idea to filter gun possession by mental illness, right? So
I do.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're gonna, and I'm on the fence about it, but if you're going to prevent schizophrenics from having guns, well, then gender dysphoria is another form of. I mean, it's creeping regulation, right? And but it's not. I don't think he's doing it on at least at the policy, like at the identity category level. It's like bringing in, another mental illness.
Well, I don't think he said it at all. There was some post from
who knows? That's a post article
that said the DOJ is considering. There was no statement from anyone in the administration made.
Yeah. What are these sources anyway?
But to Paul's point, I mean, it definitely, it's a very trolly sort of, flipping the narrative on the left, because like they immediately started protesting that awful, school shooting in Minnesota. Like they were protesting against guns, I mean? Like it was weird. And that sort of, hit the nail on the head. They're so hypocritical about all this. I just want to say one thing real quick about the boat. I actually have a little conspiracy theory I wanted to share. When they hit that boat with that drone strike, the first thing I thought of was, well, now Trump has proof for his tariffs being an emergency measure, right? Because that's part of the argument in his court case, which is obviously going to go to SCOTUS, which is he's using emergency executive powers to enact these tariffs, right? And a big part of his tariffs are fentanyl based. And, if we have to drone fentanyl boats out of the seas, that's a pretty good indication that this is in fact an emergency, if it's worth military might, that strengthens that part of the narrative. So I don't know. It's not a conspiracy theory probably, but like that's one of the first
No, that
things I
makes a
thought
lot of
about.
sense.
You know what I mean? I was like, oh, okay. They're definitely going to bring that up in the SCOTUS arguments, right?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that
Mm.
as an option.
So wait, do you? I'm trying to understand what's the hang up here with the executive action, because this doesn't classify as an act of war. Is that?
Yeah. Well, no. So Trump is basing his ability to enact these tariffs on sort of a little bit of a grab bag of, congressional acts over the years. And it's true. I mean, Congress has given the executive, and again, it's various stops along the way, even since, FDR and the infamous Smoot-Hawley tariffs, there have been several pieces of legislation that have given the president power to enact tariffs. But one of the main ones that he was using, right? And that's what he has to do. He has to, legally say, okay, I'm doing X because this says I'm allowed to do it, whether it's the Constitution or it's a bill or it's a law. And so he was basing a lot of his tariff activity on the emergency one. I forgot the name of it, but there's one that it's sort of like if there's an emergency situation. And just full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of declaring emergencies to do shit. Like we saw that during COVID, right? Everybody was like, emergency, you stay over there. It's like, no, you can't do that. However, that is one of the big ones that Trump is leaning on for like the majority of the tariffs, and it's fentanyl based, right? And that's why he's getting China. He's getting sort of the third parties as well. And the circuit court, I forgot which circuit it was, but they're the ones that knocked it down, and now it's going to go to SCOTUS. But the majority essentially said that there's no emergency, right? So he can't, it doesn't qualify as an emergency. And so on the heels of that, within a couple days, they blow up this boat that's supposedly full of fentanyl, right? And so that's where I got from point A to point B. I'm like, oh, okay. It's enough of an emergency. They're nuking boats out of the ocean, right? So if he, long story, put another way, his lawyers are going to get up there and be like, well, fentanyl's killing a bunch of people, sure, but does it really rise to the level of an emergency? They go, well, we're doing military action over here, right?
Mm.
Okay,
that's all.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes there's this, not sometimes, it seems like there's an imbalance of inflection or introspection. Like we do it more on our side than the other side when it comes to these kind of things.
We do.
I mean? Like, I don't know why. Why is it?
We also question Trump, the base.
Yes.
I think people that are MAGA, even MAGA light, or whatever. There's way more questioning of Trump on his policies than there ever is on the left. Like everything from Epstein to this to the tariffs, even like, I would say it's even a healthy debate most of the time. Sometimes it's not, but
this just reminded me of.
Would you agree, Nikki? You're on mute.
You know what I think it is? I think it's.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
I think that there is questioning on the left, but it's always the farther left questioning the center. And it's very little of the center questioning the far left.
Yeah, it's more of like,
right?
you're not Marxist enough. Why aren't you going?
Yeah, I don't think it's questioning. It's actually hate and accusations.
Yeah, I mean, critical of mindset.
You're Nazi, you fascist. You don't
absolutely. And last night, even Trump had Zuckerberg and Gates to the White House. They were sitting right next to him, and there were a lot of people that were like, "WTF?" Like, we know that you have to, grease up these people, but like, what the fuck? Like, why are they? That's a bit much.
So,
and even hardcore MAGAs were coming out and being like, "Nope, that's not cool."
Well, that's the thing. That is part of the coalition. Is the tech bros, like tech industry.
Yeah, but you don't have to have Bill Gates there. You know what I mean? You can still have David Sacks. You can still have Palantir. Like there's a lot of other tech bros.
Yeah, but
have Bill Gates,
I mean, he's
there, and even Mark
part of
Zuckerberg,
the Magnificent Seven. I mean, he's got a massive company, which is the top stocks in the S&P. I mean, you gotta play ball with this guy. If he's open to it, you know, you want to have a big tent. I don't know what the hell deals that they're making. I don't know what this $800 billion is going to be or whatever it is.
That's my concern. Like,
What's
what
that
deal
about?
are
Yeah,
you
sure. We
making with
should know what
Trump?
that's about.
Period.
Yeah, but like, I don't know whether the meeting is a bad idea.
I think that seems to be a recurring theme now with 2.0. And, you know, in the spirit of like, we can always ask questions. There's a lot of stuff we don't seem to know. We're in the dark about. But I wanted to add something going back about introspection. You just reminded me of a person who joined NDR a while ago, and he was previously, he considered himself a hard left socialist, but he asked me a very good question. He said, "How do I know that this new perspective I'm exploring is like I'm right? You know, if I'm wrong?" And I told him. That kind of came to me that if you are on the path to truth, one of the features of characteristic of that is that you always have introspection. You always question yourself, you know, if you're in the right. And do you know what I mean? Like, you would always question yourself and cross-examine yourself, your position, wherever you are. And that's not a characteristic you would see on the left. Generally, they assume that they're always right. And to be fair, there are a lot of people, sometimes on outside, who don't do that too. So if you're on the path to truth, you would always end up cross-examining yourself continually, and that was my answer to him. So this is like, it's a good characteristic to have on our side here, to always cross-examine. So like on the topic of the boat, right? You know, yes, that seems sensible, but there's always a slippery slope, and we should always mention that.
True.
I mean, there were 11 people on this boat. Going with what you just said, you know, how many people would be on a drug boat if they really want to maximize storage for drugs? Could it have been a kind of a, you know, trafficking migrant boat instead?
Well,
You know?
I think what little I know about the Tren de Aragua is that they tend to be highly armed, and you need a specific number to kind of watch the goods, whatever they're delivered. And so I think that number is intentional.
11 guys. I mean, the boat. Yeah, I mean, it seems maybe it's like a two birds and one stone thing. You know, we blow up we blow up a migrant trafficking boat. We use it as a pretext for the tariffs, you know, and, you know, we also disincentivize human trafficking.
Oh, do you mean like out of that 11, a few of them could be just civilian migrants?
Could be, yeah, could be.
I mean, we don't know anything.
We don't know anything.
We only know what we were
We have a
told.
video.
Fuzzy picture of a boat that gets blown
There's a
up.
blurry video.
Getting blown up. We don't know anything. We only know what they're telling us.
I mean, that's
totally
fair.
fake.
It could be a luxury yacht. It could be a yacht going from one
speculation.
resort to another.
I would argue that even if it's fake, the deterrence is still there.
Right.
Which I'm a fan of. I mean,
No,
I don't want to see
that's
people
exactly
get blown
what
up.
I'm saying. I can look at that overall picture of it, but I can't like definitively say I know
Exactly.
anything about what
We don't
happened in that strike. We don't.
You're right. You don't want to just take their word for it, Nikki? Come on. It's easier.
I believe them just as much as I believe anything that RFK Jr. says without showing me any proof. And yes, I get in trouble.
Here we go.
Wait, you're not a fan of RFK anymore?
About this.
Watch out, Maha.
Very thing.
What's happening, Nikki? You're just falling out of love with Maha? I thought.
Well, no, I'm not falling out of love with Maha. I want Maha. I want Maha to be done right. I believe that making America healthy again is giving Americans agency over their own healthcare decisions. That's what I think is the way we do that. And I have not seen this administration doing any of that at all. They are actually cozying up to big insurance, which is a big problem. and not allowing people choices. The physicians who are actually taking care of the patients are getting less for the amount of work that they're actually doing as a reimbursement from that. We're getting much more government control through insurance industry and bureaucracy. In COVID policy, we've seen some great things happening where they're cutting grants for mRNA technology. At least as far as I know, for vaccines, I don't know that they cut the grants for research for other uses of mRNA technology, which I think would be a mistake if we are stifling innovation. But anyway, and cutting mandates, those things sound like great ideas. You got an exodus from the CDC, people who were indoctrinating people with horrible, false ideology about transing kids, about COVID policies. Those people leaving is a fantastic thing. I would love to see that, but it also needs to be replaced with good, sound science. And all we're seeing is, this is what I heard. I got a witness testimony from this person who said that that there was evidence that the CDC or that HHS made me throw out, and I couldn't be a whistleblower because I had evidence that the MMR vaccine, when given to Black males as scheduled, was causing a 200% fold increase in their rates of acquiring autism. That could possibly be true. But all of a sudden, you have like 10,000 people replying to a post of his video of him saying this, and they're automatically, we were lied to. This means prison. But you're just taking this person's word for it without any evidence whatsoever. It's the exact same thing people did with COVID. You took the word of these public health officials at face value, and then you went out and enacted policy, and then fell in line with the policy without verifying the information yourself. It's the same thing, and I am really appalled by it. People really want RFK Jr. to win. I did too. I wanted Maha to be Maha. Like, I wanted us to really be making Americans healthy and doing all of these things, but we can't make this exact same mistake and automatically just believe every word that comes out of his mouth without requiring any type of validation or verification of what he's saying. I think it's a huge mistake. And then I get people coming to my timeline, well, he's more credible than the CDC. Well, like, I'm more credible than the CDC, but that doesn't mean I should be making policy.
Yeah.
At HHS, I just don't. I mean, I could come out with my credentials and say, look, all vaccines cause diabetes. All vaccines cause cancer. I could go out there and I can say it and I can keep preaching it. But if I don't show you proof of that, then I am not any more credible than the people that you want to get rid of.
Yeah.
It's irresponsible, and it's sheep-like behavior, and I hate seeing people do this. It's gotten under my skin. I am extremely frustrated with the whole thing.
I want to point out, you're right. I agree with everything you said, Nikki. But from my perspective, I've learned not to, for me at least, to be frustrated and maybe even disappointed either with Trump and even like RFK. Because I understand that at the end of the day, they're still operating on the big government mindset, because they are. They're still. I think there are a different type of Democrats. That's how I see them, right? And that's how we were able to win with MAGA. They were able to make the argument of how big government can work if it was done right, kind of thing. So the way RFK has been going about it, and even with Trump with some of his policies, it kind of makes sense to me from that perspective. Like, yeah, I could see, you were a Democrat once, but you're just a different kind of Democrat now, more on this side, and this is the way you know how to get things done for America first. You understand big government better than you understand small government, but that's how you brought in that DNA into America versus MAGA first, and MAGA. And so So again, I agree with everything is about RFK and the people who are saying yes to everything he's doing. But this is where I think he's coming from. Like this is his idea of America first. Like I'm going to do it this way, but through it through.
And he's got a lot of rope too. I mean, I think that it was interesting the hearing yesterday, and the response from the Trump administration was wholly supportive, which I think speaks volumes in terms of how much leeway they're going to give him.
Well, here's the issue too. Look at the hearing yesterday. I don't know if you guys got to see this hearing that that was held yesterday. Honestly, I only saw clips of it. I don't know what the full topic was, but
it was a
the
shit show.
Democrats and establishment Republicans made RFK Jr. look good, made me want to root for the guy, even though I don't necessarily support everything he's doing.
Totally agree.
Because they are siding with the people who lied to us.
Yes.
The people who are profiting from our misery.
Yep.
So
and they didn't know what the hell they were.
Why would I not support this guy? In the face of this, I mean, he truly exposed all of these people for what they believe in and what they are going to continue to support.
It was pretty awful. Yeah. The stuff that they were saying, mostly the Democrats, but even some Republicans, like they just were saying things that were obviously not true. Like it reminded me of that the Sotomayor, Supreme Court quote during the pandemic when Sotomayor freaked out and said, "There's 100,000 children in ICUs right now with COVID," and you're like, "What?" You know what I mean? That was the kind of BS that our senators were spouting yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
There was one Republican guy, and I called him out, but he said that there were millions and millions and like hundreds of millions of people with long COVID that he was going to fight to get funding for. And in RFK, he sort of slipped by that. But these are the kinds of statements and assumptions and coming from people that have authority, from a senator.
Yep.
To say that is just nightmarishly awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And wrong. I mean, just wow.
What's your take, Paul?
I mean, I didn't think anything stops this train, to be honest. Like there's just every representation of reality by the government is instrumental in extending its power, right? So that you describe the situation in a way which necessitates the continued intervention that they have in mind, whatever it is, which is going to mean more money, more people. And then, I just think we're going to wind up with this kind of, it's a little bit, what's my take? It's a little depressing. That's what I mean, I don't know, like, cause we kind of, and I think that the administration is trying to, chisel back at that. But I think in the long run, it's very difficult to see how the fiscal situation is going to improve with all with this motivated reasoning behind how things are described and what that means.
So there's a lack of clarity.
Well, yeah, and it's on purpose. I mean, it's instrumental to their goals. It's like we're not going to. How can you can't expect someone to describe a situation accurately, give you an accurate model for reality if that, if they're what they really want is to extract value or extract wealth from the situation, they're totally incentivized to misrepresent that reality.
Well, the blow up part, I think, is interesting, right? Like you're right about the motivations, and it sucks. But to see, and Nikki might have a different opinion on this, but I think for a lot of people that went through COVID, a lot of the Maha crowd, just to watch sort of the implosion of these national health agencies is is not, it's not really considered a bad thing. I mean, I don't think that there were some people that were like, blow up the CDC, not literally, but you know what I mean? Like just dismantle the CDC or dismantle the NIH or whatever. There weren't that many people that were going that extreme. But to see, these mass resignations and, things from these agencies, there's not a lot of tears being shed, and it's very similar to the overall vaccine hesitancy that erupted after the vaccine mandates were initiated, right? It's the same impulse. If you can't manage these agencies correctly, if you can't keep them within their remit, right? If you can't keep them from overstepping and, impinging upon people's lives and actually causing harm, right? Don't act surprised when the public cheers when your building burns down. Like I'm trying to be a little bit silly with it, but like this is not surprising. I get it. I understand it. I'm in favor. Like I do think that there's a role for the federal government in public health, but I do think it's gone way overboard, in the last few decades, and it needs to be curtailed drastically. And this may be what's happening, for better or for worse. It's messy, but I mean, what did you expect?
I mean, beyond danger is coming. These are the possibilities for you. This is how it could affect you. I honestly,
right. And here's the data, and we did some data, right? We got some data.
Get some data, publish that data.
Right.
Try to influence and encourage people to live healthy lifestyles, that kind of thing.
Right.
Get outdoors, get some air, touch grass, I mean, that kind of stuff.
And then inspect the food, the
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Keep us safe from attacks from foreign and domestic agents. That's their job. That's the role, right?
Yeah.
Like
I would argue that they haven't been doing that, right? Because they've been doing all this other crap that they're not supposed to be doing. And they've been falling off on their core mission.
They have taken license to become much more than what they are. The Center for Disease Control is the actual name for the CDC. Why does the CDC have policy on transgender recommendations for children? That isn't disease control at all. I mean, like there's lots of things. If you look at the HHS is the largest government agency. It gets trillions of dollars in tax money.
This is a question
it covers Head Start, for goodness sake. That's education. That has nothing to do with healthcare.
I think it's interesting we use the word agency to describe these entities, because for me, the word agency is something that you use for yourself, that you exercise agency. And I think we have reached a point, as with all civilization, we have outsourced our agencies to strangers in a distant place. Yeah. And they are the agency. They are your agents now. And I think a lot of, one of the things I was hoping for MAHA and MAGA is that they would have used this opportunity in our point in history to resurface what I just mentioned about agency and individual sovereignty, because I feel like that is the bedrock of our civilization, the freedom to be able to make decisions. But I'm not seeing that. And to my earlier point, it's because the heroes of this movement right now do come from that DNA that, big government, if done right, can solve problems. It's just the other side have misused big government. That's how I'm seeing with elements of MAHA, and MAGA.
Yeah. Well, but I think I don't know that I would actually even use the heroes, but they are being touted as heroes. They still think government is the answer. They just think that they would do it differently. And so this brings me back to the point that I made earlier about, and I just posted the link from the CNN article, that 9 states have banded together to create the Northeast Public Health Collaboration. So basically they're going to be using their state and city health officials to come up with their own health policy. It's taking, a step against the centralized version of it. I think this is a good thing. We don't have to like what they're doing, but you can also battle that at your state level. You elect the people who make these decisions, who then appoint people to do this.
That's a good trend.
You have the state level and local
I gotta jump,
level,
guys. I'll see you next week.
Level. So
see you next week, Eric.
Bye, Eric.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because you're showing this, that you're right. One of the things that coming out of this transition in our history is the trend towards potentially decentralization, whether it's taken up by the other side or our side. So this is a net positive, don't you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, was it this federalism, right?
That's right.
States make the decisions they can. I mean, I think it would be great to even take it further and have localities make as much decisions.
Absolutely.
So, especially with education. But I mean, if we could get back to that, I mean, I think there's just been a tremendous executive overreach on many, many things. Usually since FDR and the agency model. Dismantling that is a good thing.
Yeah, but it's ironic that
think there's going to be any type of redemption of the CDC. There's nothing that anybody who's running it can do to convince me that that's where I should get my information about my own individual health. I'm not. I've long. I mean, I stopped trusting them a long time ago. So even before COVID. To do the right thing and to tell the truth and to make policy that's, benefiting individual health. When you make blanket policy that says we need to vaccinate all newborn babies against hepatitis B infection, even if their mom had no risk of transmitting it to them. That was when I first started questioning this stuff. And I was actually a resident in training, early in my resident training to be a doctor. And, so.
When was that? Just curious. What year did they do that?
Oh God. So it was, I finished my residency
without getting too specific.
In 06. So it's somewhere between 2002 and 2006. So I want to say around 2004.
Wow, interesting. Because I had no idea
that happened. Yeah. It was introduced, and we actually had this thing we called morning report. And a lot of residency programs still do this, where we actually sent in the morning, we go around on our patients who are inpatient. Some of us, before you go off the clinic, we meet together there's faculty in there, there's medical students, there's interns, and more senior residents, and the residents run it. The interns are, sort of presenting cases, and then we talk about the case together. Well, in this particular one, somebody was introducing the topic that the CDC was now recommending this, fully supported by the American Academy of Pediatrics, with all of this stuff. And that, we were going to start administering this vaccine in our newborn nursery. And all of us were the people who will write these orders, right? So we're signing off on these orders. So this is why we're having this conversation. And we actually had a debate. There were attendings who were, disagreeing with each other. There were residents who were agreeing with each other, and medical students. We were arguing this. And I remember the exact wording from the person who was telling us the reason why they were supporting this policy was so that they don't miss anybody. So we can make a blanket policy, something that's going to affect millions of babies, because we don't want to miss somebody. We don't want to miss one. And you're not even telling us how many you could potentially miss. Yes, hepatitis and liver infection is a horrible thing. Yeah. We don't want to see babies with it. But we could do a better way we could screen better. Let's come up with a better way to screen, or a rapid screening method before we start inoculating babies right at birth before they even leave the hospital. And then, go through measures to not even allow parents to make the decision about it. Like that's a problem.
I mean, how much do you think this is fascinating? How much do you think this moral reasoning, this moral justification is just based on money? Like someone's getting paid for all these vaccines.
I honestly do think people are getting paid. I think the pharmaceutical companies do want their products to be sold to the government and be used, right? And I absolutely think they are. But I do think that there are true people in public health who aren't getting paid, who don't have that as an incentive, and they truly believe the stuff that they're putting out. Like, just like,
Yeah.
just for this particular example, we're debating this whole thing. There's people who truly believe that they were doing good by doing this. And they,
Yeah.
and of course, that you're going to get, anybody with a financial incentive can make that argument and make that case and know that you're going to get support from people.
And a lot of people get roped in
good.
moral, like it's a lot of it is this sort of progressive mentality that, if one life,
Yep.
if any one of us is,
Yep.
we're all
Just save one
suffering,
life, we're all, yeah.
But
we need to make sure that everyone, and the whole equity thing, like it all fits into the moral paradigm. And it's very compelling. It's very, Judeo-Christian. I'm not going to lie. Like, and it
I
does
don't know if that's
people.
Judeo-Christian, to be honest with you.
If you believe in universal every human being is equally divine.
But
but that doesn't. But there's nothing in Christian indoctrination or doctrine that says the government must provide that.
You're absolutely right, and that's what people slip over. But the moral, like the idea of like having a moral, the government is just a vehicle to do that. People say there's no religion in government. There is. The justifications are very religious, and how people think, they make the claim that the government should do X, Y, and Z. Usually there is some moral basis for it, some moral argument behind it.
Yeah.
And that moral paradigm is very Judeo-Christian.
The moral paradigm is very Judeo-Christian, but the enactment of it is not. That's the problem.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It's a false interpretation of what, our
But
values.
that feeling you get
are, yes, that we should be supportive to one another, that we should treat each other as, equal living beings.
This is why it's so compelling and dangerous. I agree.
There's nothing in Christian doctrine.
It's an intuition, right? These things, no one's going through and reading the doctrines when they make these arguments, right? They don't know what you guys know. They know the feeling, right? The goodness that it feels like.
Yeah.
They're not thinking, but so that blows away any dialogue around trade-offs.
Yeah.
And,
costs
and things.
Well, here's the other argument against for it.
It's runaway compassion is what it is.
Yeah, as you also have conservatives who believe that government should have a heavy hand in things that are, Christian principles. So just take the abortion debate as an example. If you believe that abortion is murder, and then we should legislate that, right? So instead of being individual Christians and going out and preaching the gospel and affecting culture and spirituality, taking that personal responsibility to do that, to change people's minds, let's just
outsource
the way the churches roll here, and let's just give it to government. So you can't argue. These very same Christians can't then come around and say that it's wrong to make government, responsible for people's health care, for people's well-being, nutrition and food and all of these things, if you're also going to argue that the government should have a role in these other things.
Yeah, I can just quote chapters and verse now very easily that's never outsourced to a public institution. I mean, public institutions have their role, but when it comes to charity, I can go into the epistles right now. It's on you and your community to first establish that relationship with the person you're helping and see them through it. And the Apostle Paul is very clear about that, because here's an interesting thing on the other side of the coin. There was a problem in the book of Corinthians when he was traveling to Corinth, that there were people that they were helping were actually misusing and abusing, taking advantage of the charity that was being given to the church. And so charity is really a relationship. It's mutual. It's like, you're accountable to the person who's giving you the charity, and then the person who's giving the charity is also accountable to make sure that charity is helping. That's how charity should work. There's an accountability on both parties. That doesn't happen when you outsource it to an agency. you have no accountability. You don't know if the money
Correct.
you're paying the taxes is helping the person, and that person, those receiving the benefit, don't feel like they're accountable to the person who's giving that charity. So just seconding.
I've got a question. This is apropos a little bit, but a little bit of field. So you guys are, I mean, I know you know more about religion than I do, but Jesus was a carpenter, right?
Briefly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get this all the time. Well, you know, Jesus, if you're, you know, it was anti-capitalist somehow, like Christianity is socialist. I get this argument all the time. And it's like, well, no, like, did he charge for his services? Like, did Jesus do it for free? Did he give away his carpentry services for free? No, right? He must have. I mean, the assumption is he charged for it.
He did that to support his family. Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah, there's some exchange in goods and services going on.
And
he provided a service. He received remuneration. I mean, it's a small scale artisan, but he's a capitalist, right?
I don't know if that's the way to frame it. I don't think we would just come out and say he's this or that, because you understand as a spirit, as a or just say a being from a higher dimension. Okay, if you don't believe that he's the son of God, God is neither a capitalist or a communist. At the end of the day, he simply is. He owns everything.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, they didn't think that way back then, too. Historically,
but I have to say about this idea that the social.
But he had to make his nut. I mean, right? Like Jesus had to make his nut.
Yes, and
he had to cover his. He had bills. Okay,
it should be pointed out that the early church was able to grow because it was sponsored by what you would call capitalists. There were merchants. I mean, you read about it. You know, everywhere he went, he was hosted by people who are very well-to-do merchants. I can go from that all the way to the Book of Acts. I mean, that's how the church grew. It existed on the generosity and network of what you would call capitalists, people who could put up the disciples in Jesus and sponsor them and give them the free meal. But it was not a communist. It wasn't a model for communism.
He had patrons, essentially, right?
He had patrons, right?
Yeah.
Leading all the way up to the time of the apostles. It's clearly written in the Book of Acts. I mean, yeah, I know people like to quote that part, selectively quote that part about you know, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man. I don't think that's that isn't a denouncement of what we would call capitalism. In fact, the word capitalism is very problematic for me. I think it was just made up by it's relatively a new word. People have been engaging in trade for thousands of years. We just decided to call it capitalism somehow.
Yeah, I mean, people define it differently, right? So I think it's like
as a pejorative.
Some people say, well,
I mean, it's an economic term, you know, a systems term for economics. It's not.
You own capital. You trade your capital for goods and services. So I don't know why that's become like a framework for good versus evil. It's a lot of wordplay there.
Yeah. Did Adam Smith use the term capitalism? Or
I'm not aware if he did. I think I may have read somewhere, I'm correct on that the word capitalism, as with a lot of our political vocabulary, was really framed by people on the other side, on the left, very recently. And we've just been using it like cheap tokens in a carnival, not thinking that those are actual. Then Paul, you're talking about clarity. How can we have clarity that everyone can agree on when we're using words that are kind of rigged, you know, kind of framed, a false framing of good versus evil? There's no winning in this debate because they have created this language that we're forced to use. So like Jesus never.
Yeah, like the word reactionary. That was a word invented by the left. Right. And people use that now to, you know, self-identify as I'm a reactionary. But actually, no, it was just a word for someone that didn't accept communism.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually looking at etymology here and history. So it was actually described as a word in around 1854 on the condition of actually having capital. But in 1872 is originally started to be used disparagingly by socialists. So
see, there you go.
Concentrating concentration of the capital in the hands of the few, the power.
So that's what I call the spirit of Cain.
Yeah.
If you guys remember the story from the beginning, how Cain murdered Abel out of envy because he didn't have God's favor. I have my own theological theology about how all our political strife really goes back way further before we built our cities. Is just how we have not been able to resolve. I mean, what you call socialism and capitalism and in race wars and whatever really boils down to how we relate with each other and how we resolve our inner conflict. But I think in the 21st century, we let institutions kind of mediate those conflict for us, and that's where things fall apart. Like it's very different if I go face to face and deal with another person who may have an issue with me, right? We could sort things out differently than if we don't get to see each other and then we let an agency again speak for us and tell us what is good, what is evil. And it gets really tricky there. But it's an interesting question that I think, Paul, you brought up. Like, I don't know why conservatives and what have you have not been able to definitively debunk the idea that Jesus was a socialist. And it's very frustrating for me. It's like, you don't know your Bible enough to know that, he was here to connect humanity with the higher realm. And he didn't necessarily have an opinion about what you would call communism and capitalism, because at the end of the day, after this life, you can't bring anything with you. And I've always told people, that when you stand before God, if you believe in that, he doesn't care whether you call yourself a communist, capitalist, American, Chinese, Russian, Jew, Gentile. It's like, what did you do in this life that breaks certain universal laws about how you treat another person?
Did you believe in me? Did you worship me? Did you
lie? Did you steal?
Did you uphold your end of the covenant here?
Did you hurt? Did you stuff that Satan would do, right? The people or the devil would do. I think that's the real criteria. Sorry, not to put on my Sunday school.
No, it's good. It's
good. But I'm very interested in that. So you brought up two things, like clarity. It's so important, clarity, and we're not seeing much about people on our side just debunking this silly idea, that stupid idea. I think it was heretical, if you ask me, that Jesus was a socialist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you go back, I don't know, if you go back to the Old Testament, and even before Christ, God was very explicit about what he wanted people to do. And there was never any conversation about capitalism versus, he basically told the church what he wanted them to do with the money anyway, what he wanted them to do with the money in his temple, that, or how to even design the temple, how to uphold and upkeep the temple, what to do with the taxes. He was very, explicit about that, but there was nothing, but it was all related to him and serving him. There was, I don't know. I just think we make up a lot of things to fit our own view of the world, and we try to make religion fit into that. And it's, no matter what you believe, the book is the book, the doctrine is the doctrine, and that's what it is. You can't twist it and turn it and try to get it to fit what you want it to fit,
especially from people who don't even believe in it. So you've seen the meme of the guy that's like, here's this book that I don't believe in, but I'm going to quote from it to chasten you about what you're doing and make my point.
I'll take this one particular
you don't even
from it. I won't look at the whole entire book and what its overall and arching meaning is. I'm going to take this out of context and then I'm going to use it against you.
And then I'll also condemn all this other stuff in the book when it's convenient.
Oh yes,
which I don't believe in.
This is a very easy way to call out and spot anyone, whether you call yourself a capitalist and communist, quoting from the Bible. This is one thing is universally true in my observation. When I grew up with an aunt who was an ordained minister in the Assemblies of God, and one of the experiences growing up with her is like I spent a lot of time in orphanages and nursing homes and places like that where you would serve the people you call the underserved and, disenfranchised. And I can tell you that I've never in my entire life seen any of the people who talk a lot, communists and socialists, about how we need to care for the poor. I've never seen a single person from that political sphere. And even the ones who, go and say that, Christ is king. Okay. I've never seen those people active in these spaces, because the people who are truly working with the poor, they will not have time for politics. That's a fact. You would be so dedicated. You'd be living on the streets, helping them, making sure that they are able to climb out of the situation they're in. You just don't have time. You may not even vote, because you know that your power comes from a higher source, and I'm just making the point. So every time I see people on X or on social media talking about, like, we need to help the poor, we need to have this program, that program, I'm like, you're highly sussed.
Yeah, I do not get into religious debates at all on social media.
That you cannot. I mean, and here's the thing I keep pointing out about, Che Guevara, the famous revolutionary that overthrew Cuba. So he was a medical student.
He's a poster in every dorm room.
Yeah, he's a medical student. That was a story that was interesting. He said he was a medical student, and how he got interested in caring about the poor was he was riding his bike one day around Latin America, and he saw the poor. And my immediate reaction was, well, why didn't you go and start your own clinic then and just dedicate your life to that? No, he didn't. He just went back to his university and started a revolutionary movement to help the poor. Does that make sense to you? You don't really care about the poor. You care about yourself caring about the poor, if that makes sense. So that's like the big giant plot hole with the idea of Che Guevara being the hero or the revolutionary. Like, he was studying medicine, but he never finished medical school and started his own clinic. Instead, he started a revolution and made things worse for the people of Cuba. Anyway,
you love humanity, but humans make you uncomfortable.
Exactly.
That's the knock on the socialist or any ideologue, really. Like, it's great to live in abstractions, because then you don't actually have to talk to real people.
Yeah, there's no actual portfolio to back up your work.
Well, I think that, I love to think about this stuff in a way, in very simple or simplistic terms. Your ideas about helping people and individuals do work on a small scale.
Absolutely, it's the most meaningful and effective. Absolutely,
globally, you do actually cause harm. So
it needs to be small and local, because again, the recipient of your charity knows where it's coming from, and they feel accountable to you, and they may motivate to be better. And you're not wasting resources.
Yeah.
And that kind of happens in our family relationships, right? When you take care of your child, and it's like, that you're on track. So
yeah.
But for
my
socialists,
house is, it's a little bit of a dictatorship. There's going to be some rules you have to follow here, and if you don't, these are the consequences. Right?
That's another topic that I would love to discuss with you both in the future, because I feel much of socialism was just like this, not just really projection of our familial relationships, where there is a degree of legitimate authoritarianism, we can call it that, when you have this a parent-child relationship. But for some people, they think that could be scaled up to the entirety of society and a set of relationship with strangers, and that will work. It doesn't work. Like in my world, in design world, there's something called scaling fallacy. What works locally, if you scale it up at certain sizes, will not work. So that's a phenomenon in design. It's called scaling.
Yeah, and I've also wondered, like, I don't have kids, but I've wondered, I've seen families, I have friends with families, and, and in some ways, like, how much do you proscribe something in your child or your other family members? How much do you prescribe? Like, how much do you, as long as you don't do these bad things, right, that are beyond the pale, like, I'm okay with you, I respect you, I respect your choices as a fellow human being and individual, even though you're my child, and I feel invested in you. And then how much of it is prescribed? Like, you've got to do this, this, and this for me to love you. There's a lot of weird stuff going on between those two things in parenting that I've had a little bit of both in my own experience, but I always find sometimes a little better if you just say, look, be yourself within these boundaries rather than you got to do this, this, and this. And I'm going to micromanage you every step of the way.
Let me ask you, it's an interesting thought. Did you find for both of you, your upbringing affected your political outlook later on in life? Meaning that did you kind of layer on your relationship with your parents to public institutions? Because I noticed there are some people, that's my observation, like how they were brought up and their circumstance in their family. When they graduate into society, they kind of brought those expectations that they had in their family and parents and their relationship with their siblings, and they kind of continue that onto society at large. Like, so they would expect agencies, to use that word, to look out for them the way their parents would look out for them, or their relationship would look. There was this.
So, like, you're thinking a lot of the millennial helicopter parenting sort of guides their political ideology.
I'm just making an observation. Maybe I could be wrong, but I just feel like that there's sometimes part of us as human beings is we want some continuity, right? Growing up in the safety of the family or whatever, to have that in our adult lives. And if we're in a new, different circumstance, we would expect that from other agencies if our parents are not around. And I could be wrong. But
also, like, if you have families with few, like where you don't have a lot of siblings, a lot of only children, like they never actually, a lot of them have difficulty negotiating their own arrangements with people for themselves, like self-advocacy.
I think it relates to parenting and how you parent. And I deal with this a lot with affirming reality coaching, parent coaching. We focus on the parenting. That is what we're doing. We don't talk to the kids who have gender identity disorder. We're talking to the parents and guiding them on their relationship with them and trying to figure out what it is that went wrong in the parenting relationship. And we are seeing a lot of this kind of permissive parenting as a cause of it, allowing kids to just find their inner self, or be completely resigned to thinking that their emotional health and well-being is much more important than everything else, so that you have to satisfy my emotions. I think this is a loaded conversation. It would be a great conversation for another day. But
yeah, I'm very interested in exploring that.
Your parents do influence a lot of the way you navigate the world, the way that you were parented do. But there's some direct and some indirect consequences of that. If your parents are telling you, no, I'll do this for you, you don't need to think this through or do this or think critically, then I'll do this for you and take care of you. Then, when you are 18, you can't figure out how to navigate life, then that's a problem. Or if your parents are telling you absolutely no, you obey all of the rules, you do exactly what you say, then you're going to be a person who goes around and you follows all of the rules in life, and you never think for yourself either. So, I mean, there's a ton of this. You can create trauma by being too authoritarian. You can create trauma by being too permissive. There needs to be a happy medium in between that. And now we've got technology exposing people to a lot more adult and sensitive content, and you've got digital addictions and things that go along with it. This is a complex subject, but absolutely parents do influence your behavior and your thinking.
I brought that up because I know conservatives always like to, and rightfully so, call out how public education is bad, and they're kind of also saying that it's responsible for raising this generation of socialism. I say, hold on a minute. I mean, kids only spend X amount of time in schools, but they also spend just as many time at home. Like, so how come parents, whatever?
Yeah.
But why isn't that part of their education? Like, are they sitting around the dinner table and dad is telling them Marxism is good? I mean, like, where is that coming from? Like, you can't blame schools all the time.
Absolutely.
And, like, isn't it? And for conservatives, you're saying, well, the kids are turning socialist. Well, don't you have the responsibility to, like, maybe have a 5-minute round in the dinner table, talk about the Constitution? Like, whose real responsibility is this falling on? Like, why are we putting it all on public education. It just
Well,
seems to me.
I think you can teach conservative principles in a way without even bringing up politics. We don't talk a lot of politics, with our kids. They bring up stuff, we'll talk about it. But if we can talk about certain principles, they're learning about, like, my youngest is learning about, communism, socialism, right now. And she's so funny that she actually presented to her teacher, that both of them, she was asked kind of what's the difference. And, and she's saying, theoretically, both of them are saying that the government owns, the means of production in both cases, and then gets to decide how that wealth is distributed. And the teacher basically tried to tell her that she was wrong, and she wasn't wrong. So we encouraged her to debate and openly challenge.
Wow. Well, good job.
So, that's in that respect, we're kind of teaching, and my oldest was learning something about socialism, or had come across something about socialism on the internet. And which, by the way, I think a lot of the kids really get most of their indoctrination from the internet more than they do in school, to tell you the truth. But from what I'm saying, but and we talked about, and I just walked her down the line. Okay, like, so what does this look like to you? What does this look like? What is, and then gave examples. Okay, so let's look at this situation, and we did the experiment about grades. If you earn this A, and then your teacher decides that, even though your classmate didn't do any work, didn't earn anything, would really get an F, and your teacher decides to distribute and give everybody C's, is that fair to you? And you worked hard and you got your, to earn your A, but everybody else is getting the benefit of your work. Does that make sense? Those kinds of things, and make it relatable to them in that way. And really, you're not necessarily even talking about the actual politics itself. You're thinking about the principle.
That's important. It's the principle. Yeah, that's because my next question is, how do you make sure that whatever you're imparting to her, it's not a variation on what the other side is doing? It's like, this is me telling you what to think. Like, how much make sure that a lot of this is your agency, and you'll be able to actualize reality on your own. Absolutely. Because what I'm telling you is helping you understand first your own space and how it relates to the other space around you. And that's where truth is.
Well, what we tell them, and what we try our best to ingrain in them, is, look, we have our own beliefs about this stuff, but your job right now is learning. And you need to look at every single source you possibly can. Don't just look at Reddit. Don't just look at what CNN says. Don't just look at what the Wall Street Journal or even what Fox News says. Look at multiple sources. Look at the actual source documents, if you can trace all the way back to them, and try to find out what the truth is. And then you make a decision about it. And that's been our goal. I got one in college now. Is she gonna get, start to be thinking differently? Possibly. Who knows? You know what I mean? Before she starts making her own money and whatever. But we just have to, and go back to pray, hope for the best, and continue to teach and be good models of what we want them to be. So, well,
I really enjoyed today's conversation. I think we are, it's always the best part is the pre-show, and then always towards the end, we're just warming up. Just warming up. So I think that's pretty good for the end of the week. I really appreciate all your insight. Do we want to close with a happy bean, Nikki?
I have one, but it's a little long, so I'll hold it for next time.
Oh,
since we went over.
Okay. Well, I'm short of happy beans, but I promise I will collect more next week. So I think we're good. And so have a great weekend, and I will see you in episode 51.
Right, thanks, everyone. You guys.
All right, bye.
Really appreciate it.